Welcome. Okay, guys, so I passed my RHIT exam, and I just want to give you guys a quick overview of my experience and the things that I use to help me study and what you will need to know for this exam as well. Because studying for this exam is stressful, stressful. I did not know what to study, where to start, how to start. So hopefully, this video can give you guys an idea of what you need to study and how to start to study. So, let's get into it. First thing first, you want to know where you're going the day of your test. Make sure you know what to bring and where you're going. Eat before your exam because you do not want to be stuck there 3.5 hours and you're hungry because you would try to rush through it so you can get you some food. And take your time because the exam is 3.5 hours and you will not even use all that time. I got done in about an hour and a half, and I'm a slow test taker. So just take deep breaths in, deep breaths out, and you'll do just fine. The exam is usually 150 questions, but that can vary. You can get anywhere between 130 and 160 questions. 10 of those questions won't be counted towards the actual exam. And lastly, bring earplugs. If you're like me, you need a quiet room when taking your test. Then definitely bring earplugs because your testing facility may or may not have them. Some of the resources I use to help me study is the Health Information Management Technology and Applied Approaches book by Sals. This is your holy grail for studying. So Quizlet and Cram is very great resources too. So I will recommend starting with that. You can do your flashcards and quiz yourself with Quizlet and Cram and also practice exams. And what you do not know or what you lack knowledge in, then definitely go back to that Health Information Management and Technology book and read more on it to get you familiarized with it, and then go back and quiz yourself and see if you're grasping the concept of it. And that's how I study. But Quizlet and Cram are definitely really great resources and will help you out tremendously. So when you go on Quizlet, type in RHIT whiteboard, and that is very helpful. Those notes are very helpful when studying. Your practice exam, you can buy the RHIT Prep, the purple book, but it's not really necessary because all those practice exams are on Quizlet. So that's not really mandatory if you can't afford it. But if you can afford it, then definitely do because it does break down the domain in percentages. So you'll know, like, if you do bad in domain one, you'll know what percentage you got, so you'll know you need to study that. But you can also do that on Quizlet. Just go on Quizlet, type in RHIT domain one, and quiz yourself. And if you don't do good, then you know you need to study that section and etc. Do that with all the sections and figure out what your strengths and your weaknesses are. I would recommend studying like 1 or 2 hours, 3 to 4 days a week, depends on how much of the information you know or you don't know. Okay, so we have abbreviations is a big part of this exam. If you do not know the abbreviations, then you would not do well because all the questions they do not spell out the words, they have abbreviations. So make sure you know abbreviations. And I just gave some of the examples of some of the abbreviations that you would need to know. These are not an all-inclusive list. There are just some definitions. So if you do not know these definitions, then make sure you know them. And with this, again, you can use Quizlet. Just go on Quizlet, type in RHIT abbreviations, and it will give you a list of all the abbreviations and their meaning beside of it. So just make sure you know your abbreviations, and that will be very helpful. Start there. Start by learning your abbreviations. Okay, so next, what should you know? Okay, so again, this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just some of the stuff that I think will be very helpful for you to know and for you to start off with studying with, because these are definitely areas that I do remember from the exam and that I definitely would recommend you study and know. Okay, so legal health records, you definitely will want to know what is that, what's the components of it, who owns it, all the things about legal health records, you want to make sure you know. And usually with this, the attorney of a hospital do kind of have to put as into what that should include, but you just want to know the basics of it. Data sets. Data sets are very important. So know the different types and what setting they're used in. So for example, the DEEDS, you should know that's used in the emergency department. D DEEDS stands for Data Elements for Emergency Systems. So you just want to go through. I listed a couple examples. So just if you don't know those, just go through, Google it, and again, Quizlet will have that too. So just familiarize yourself with the data sets and the definitions and what they're used for. Okay, so next is data warehouse. Data warehouse is a big thing too. You definitely want to familiarize yourself with what that is. And if you don't know, data warehousing is when you're collecting the data from different data sources within the healthcare organization and starting into a single database. So that can be used for decision making lots of the time, well, most of the times. Next is data management systems. So know the types and the usage when it comes to data management systems. Release of information. This is very important too. You want to make sure you're familiarize yourself with the different laws when it comes to releasing information, because that that is like a lot of legal stuff. So you definitely don't want to release the wrong information to the wrong people, and you definitely want to make sure you have all the requirements before releasing the information. So just familiarize yourself with those, and I just listed like some of the entities that you can release the information to. So just make sure you know how to release information to patients, physicians, when it comes to COC, research, government, statistics, and adoptions. And also make sure you familiarize yourself the time frame you're required to release that information in. So like if on site 30 days, outside 60 days. Brief notifications, you want to make sure you know how to go about a breach being in the system. So if it's like 500 people, information or more that's been breached, then you will want to send that notification out immediately and contact them individually. Um, just make sure you also know the ARRA requirements for all covered entities as well when it comes to breaches.
And that was editing the video. I noticed I forgot to go over documentation standards. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly. So when you're studying for documentation standards, you just want to make sure that you know all the components that is considered a complete medical records. So you want to make sure it's time, dated, signature, and legible, and all the other requirements that are needed to be a complete medical records. For time frames for H&Ps, which is history and physicals, you want to make sure those are done usually 24 hours within admissions. Also, you want to make sure to know the time frame for discharge summaries to be complete, and it's usually like 48 hours. So, as long as you know those components, you should be good to go.
Okay, so we're gonna go to the next page here. Destruction of health records. Excuse me, I meant to put health records, but just know your retention law for destruction of health records and how that process goes. Storage. You want to know how health records are stored, whether it's paper records or electronic health records. Just know how those things are stored and the systems that is used to retrieve those records. So I just gave a couple examples. Guys, you should know when a physician comes in, they need a record out of HIM department. They may take the paper record and put an out guide in, so they know that record is out missing. Emergency preparedness. If a hurricane or something hit, make sure you know how that facility will back up that information and how is information protected in those case scenarios. And of course, no filing, numbering, and retrieval system. So that's straight numbering, terminal digit, middle digit, alphanumeric, and numeric. Just know those filing methods and what they look like. Make sure you'll be able to pick them out and determine which is terminal, which is straight, which is middle, and you'll be fine. Revenue cycle, make sure you know the front end, the middle end, and the back end, what is included. So the front end, scheduling, middle end, coding, back end, billing, and etc. Just make sure you know what's included in all those processes. Query process, make sure you know how the query process work and how the physician get queries and who queries the physician, the coder, of course, or in some cases it may be the CDI nurses, depending on the facility, but most cases coders, CDI program. Just make sure you know that process of how the clinical documentation improvement programs work and what's included in it and the functions of it and the purpose. Just make sure you know that the coder role, make sure you know what the coders do and what their responsibility and functions are in the HIM department. Coding, it's not too much coding on the exam, but you do want to familiarize yourself with the guidelines and things that pertain to coding, but I didn't have too much on my exam. Case index, you definitely need to know what that is and how to calculate that, as well as weighted relative value weights. You definitely want to know what that is. Okay, let's go to the next page. Medicare. You definitely want to know the four parts of Medicare and what is covered in each part. So there's A, B, C, and D. Know what is covered in each of those parts. Know which one will cover things like a breast augmentation. You know that um you would think Medicare wouldn't usually cover that, but say the patient has cancer or something and had to have a mastectomy, so they need like they have a breast augmentation. Which part of Medicare will cover that? Payment systems. Know what is used for inpatient and know what's used for outpatient. Um, know what retrospective and prospective is. Retrospective, of course, is payment afterwards. Prospective is payment beforehand. FT, FTE and coder productivity. Know those formulas. Know how to calculate that when you see that. I can also do a video or give you guys formulas on that if you would like. Just let me know. Coding rules. Make sure you know how to code according to coding guidelines. So if a patient come in with a fracture and the patient also have HIV, know how to code that. Okay, we got policy, procedures, benchmarks, and charts. So make sure you know the definition of each and when are they used. So when it comes to charts, make sure you know like a fishbone chart, flow charts, bar charts, paragraphs. Make sure you know all those things. Make sure you know how benchmarks is used with production and everything like that. Um, Data quality characteristics, make sure you know all of those and examples of those when you see those. Patient self-determination act, make sure you know what that is. It'll probably have PSTDA on the exam, so make sure you know that stands for patient self-determination act. Okay, so that wraps up that. Again, that is not all, but that's definitely a couple things you will definitely need to know for your RHIT exam. Sorry guys, video got interrupted, but again, that's not an all-inclusive list, but it was definitely things that would be very helpful to know. So just look over this PowerPoint and just pick things out that you don't know and definitely research more and study more on these materials. Familiarize yourself with it. Um, just some recommendations. Don't cram the night before. That usually get me so confused. So I don't recommend you doing that. When you're taking an exam, find the questions you don't know. Then at the end, go back and try to answer them. And don't change your answer. I was so tempted to, but I didn't. I just submitted it and I ended up passing. So good luck, you guys. Let me know how things go. If you guys would like a video of me going into more details explaining these things that I listed, definitely comment below and let me know. And I will definitely put out that video for you guys. So again, good luck and let me know in the comment section how it goes.